Hey guys, Chicky Domain, Deboo.com with a Deboo.com surf forecast update. This forecast update effective around 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday, September 20th, 2016, and starts you off with some satellite imagery of the remnant Julia up here off the Outer Banks, trough of low pressure all the way down in here towards East Florida and down in here towards the central Gulf of Mexico. This is all part of the dying front, and ex-Julia has now become frontal in nature. Models are not showing any redevelopment at this time of Julia. However, just like we just saw with the Ian swell, the remnants of Julia and or this trough can play or looks to play into the upcoming wind forecast at the same time that the swell from Tropical Storm KAR-ULL could be Hurricane KAR-ULL next 48 hours arrives on U.S. East Coast. We'll show you the wind forecast here in just a few moments, but we also wanted to spread you out a little bit heading out towards the east. Here is Tropical Storm KAR-ULL. KAR-ULL has been straddling the 20 latitude line over the last 48 hours or so. Have not seen a turn towards the west-northwest yet, but it's anticipated in the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll have to see how that works out, and that will also determine how far west Tropical Storm KAR-ULL or Hurricane KAR-ULL can make it. But models and the National Hurricane Center showing a northwest movement and then a turn to the north over the 5-day period. There are some differences in models as far as timing on exit into the North Atlantic between the GFS and the Euro. We'll take a look at that in just a few moments as well. And then moving further east towards the African coast, this was TD number 13, 96L Invest, has now become Tropical Storm LEE-SUH. LEE-SUH looks to remain a fish storm, however, may back up some of that ground swell that's coming from Tropical Storm KAR-ULL over the next couple of days. And here is the latest run of the GFS. We wanted to show you this. When we go back and look at what's over Africa, the GFS has been hinting over the last 4 to 5 days at increase in tropical activity coming. Looking at this image, this is over Africa now. We have Tropical Storm LEE-SUH, top left-hand portion of your screen, and what looks to be 3 tropical waves. 1, 2, and 3. And when we look at the 06G, the GFS this morning run, this is at 14 days. We see 1 low, 2 lows, and 3 lows, this third one just east of the islands. So when we go back and look at the imagery, 1, 2, 3, and look at the model, 1, 2, 3, this gives us the idea that those 3 areas of low pressure that are over Africa are going to move along the intertropical convergence zone and head towards the Western Caribbean. Now, we want to go ahead and get this out of the way because we have, most of you have already seen on social media feeds that the GFS were showing a hurricane in the very extended forecast period. Mind you, this is one run of many more to come, but we wanted to go ahead and get this out of the way. This is starting you off at day 8, which would likely be, this would be 97L Invest, one of those waves moving off Africa at day 8, day 9 and 10, and 11 through 14 with a landfalling system into Florida. Again, guys, long ways out, but the model has been repeating itself on low pressure moving into the Western Caribbean over the next 2 weeks, something that we'll keep an eye on. All right, so let's switch you over to a buoy update. This is the St. Martin's Buoy. St. Martin's Buoy now showing front runner ground swell out of Tropical Storm KAR-ULL. St. Martin's Buoy now 6 to 7 feet, 11.4 seconds out of the east. Moving you into the South Bermuda Buoy. South Bermuda Buoy also picking up on Tropical Storm KAR-ULL swell, 5 feet, 11 seconds out of the east-northeast, and we're starting to get the first pings now on the Northeast Bahama Buoy. That's the next indicator buoy in line, showing some flash 12 to 11 second pings at about 3 feet. So we'll be continuing to monitor the buoys, the next buoys, Northeast Bahama and the Paul West Bermuda buoy up on the buoy watch. We should start to see swell fill on those tomorrow, with swell arrival probably on Thursday. This is the latest 48-hour swell forecast, showing a wide patch of 10 to 12 second east-southeast ground swell impacting the east coast of the United States. Now, we mentioned this in our last update. Again, this is a 48-hour swell forecast. Look at the northwest swell coming out of the North Atlantic. That's 15 to 18 second front runners in here, impacting the west coast of Africa. The size is not important. The idea is, and that is that we're starting to see some key indications of fall and winter swell season getting ready to return. This northerly swell is coming all the way out of here, just south of the tip of Greenland, and then working its way all the way through the eastern Atlantic. So at a 48-hour swell forecast map, that means that this swell is already generated probably 48 hours ago, and in 48 more hours, it's going to make it all the way down to the West African coast. Looking at Tropical Storm KAR-ULL, the max seas at the moment, sorry, my map is off, 16 feet is max seas at the moment. Next 48 hours, KAR-ULL expected to seas increase into excess of 20 feet, max winds 55 to 65 knots, and then 72 hours, KAR-ULL forecast to have max seas in excess of 30 feet and become a hurricane, winds maxed at 70 to 85 knots, possible to get a Category 2 hurricane. The European model showing a stronger, slower system. And then if we pull over just a little bit, you can see this is the outer edge in the right-hand portion of your screen of Tropical Storm LEE-SUH swell starting to build 8 to 10 feet. Again, LEE-SUH forecast to remain a fish storm at the moment. When we look at the recent satellite imagery of Tropical Storm KAR-ULL, you can see the center of rotation is right along the 20 line in here, but you can see that the axis dips down here pretty far south and then bends back around towards the northwest, wrapping around towards that center. KAR-ULL is forecast to move off towards the northwest, and then once north of Puerto Rico, make a turn towards the north under the underside of Bermuda. Going to show you the 12Z model run. This is this afternoon's model run now. And Tropical Storm KAR-ULL in here just to the east-northeast of Puerto Rico, bottom portion of your screen. LEE-SUH is down over here. High pressure stacked in the north-central Atlantic, getting some east-southeast flow in here. Going to advance the model for you. Now, this gets into Thursday, Friday, guys, with possible Hurricane KAR-ULL lifting up to the underbelly of Bermuda. Want you to also notice up here in the North Atlantic, we'll back the model back up, but look up in here towards the North Atlantic, towards Greenland. Another swell out of the northeast is going to get produced as KAR-ULL starts to lift towards the North Atlantic. So we have a pre-existing northeast swell now with KAR-ULL moving into the North Atlantic. And look at this big high, 1028 millibar. Now this is for Sunday, guys. This is within 5 days. So confidence increases inside that 5-day window. 1028 millibar high, clockwise rotation with the winds here, counterclockwise coming off the backside of KAR-ULL, and a secondary low to the north. This is going to put some northerly winds now into this side of the Atlantic. Going to advance the model a little bit more for you. This is Sunday, and now we have northeast flow along the United States, northerly flow coming off of Nova Scotia, and then northwest flow coming off the tip of Newfoundland in here. That's going to put some northerly swell in the water. As we advance the model some more, you'll see that high pressure begins to build out, putting more northerly fetch in the water. Puerto Rico surfers, Hispaniola, and the Bahamas. Light winds for you at time of swell arrival. Could be a fun bump coming with some bigger stuff on the way. Showing you now that KAR-ULL is up in here towards the northeast Atlantic as a 971 millibar low and another area of low pressure moving into the North Atlantic. But I want you to focus in on what's coming in here off of Nova Scotia in here. Another area of low pressure. This is Wednesday of next week. So we're 8 days out now. Wednesday of next week, low pressure moving into Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. And then the GFS develops another area of low pressure east of the Outer Banks, out of the trough. If you'll notice over here towards the East Atlantic, twin 1033, 1032 millibar highs. This is going to get some northeast swell going over here in the East Atlantic. And then watch what happens with this low east of the Outer Banks. Advance you a little bit more. High pressure 1031 now builds in. That is a strong fetch of northeast winds wrapping down the eastern seaboard down into Florida. Advance the model just a little bit more, and then it develops an area of low pressure and moves it up into Nova Scotia. Now, guys, that's onshore winds. I know everybody wants offshore winds. If you waited for offshore winds surfing in Florida or anywhere along the East Coast, you probably would not surf. But look at this setup. Again, clockwise rotation with the winds here. That's some northeast swell coming all the way from the East Atlantic, northeast, and then bending into the east with pre-existing northeast swell over here. That means rideable surf for an extended period of time. And then don't forget, coming up into day 14, look what's coming up into Florida. Again, guys, one run of many more to come. Lots of time to watch. Switch you over to a quick wind forecast. Now, this is for Tuesday. You can see Tropical Storm KAR-ULL in here just east-northeast of Puerto Rico. Tropical storm force winds extend out 140 miles to the north of the center. High pressure in here stacked, aiding and getting the swell moving in a westerly direction towards the U.S. Here's the remnants of Tropical Storm Julia in here, putting some gusty onshore winds into the Outer Banks. And Florida surfers, could be some offshore winds coming on Thursday as the remnants of Julia may try to come back at us at the same time as swell arrival. Advance the wind forecast into Friday, and we get into a little bit of negative swell production on KAR-ULL as it becomes weighted, at least according to the GFS, comes weighted on the east side of the system with more southwest and southerly flow. But look at this northeast. This is going to get some northeast wrap going for Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, and the Bahamas. And as we move in towards the weekend, guys, here comes that big northeast blow. Starting up in here, opening up some northerly fetch and northwest fetch, take you into Monday, and then here comes this strong northeast blow due to high pressure moving out in the Atlantic. We're going to hold the video update to here right now. Stay tuned for the next update.